I assume I'm waiting for people to come in. Yes. Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. Okay, thank you. That's helpful. Good afternoon, everybody. My name's Brother Alistair, and I'm the rector here at Wyke Regis, and I've been requested by Councillor Luke Wakeling to be your host this afternoon for these hustings for our local election. We're very, very pleased to have with us here this afternoon both Becky and Claudia. Becky is the candidate for the Labour Party, and Claudia is the candidate for the Green Party. I'm going to begin with the first question, and I'm going to ask you in 2 minutes just to quickly say to us a little bit about yourself and why you are standing for election in Wyke Regis. So can I put that question first to you, please, Becky?
It's always me first. It's because of the Becky Blake. It's the bees, isn't it? Yeah, well, firstly, I'd like to say hello to Claudia. It's nice to finally meet you.
You too.
And good luck with everything. Not that much luck, but you know what I mean. The sentiment's there. Right, I'd also like to say thank you to everybody who set it up as well. It's great, and it's an opportunity. Right, as many of you know, my name is Becky Blake. I'm a graphic designer and illustrator living in Wyke. In fact, I was born and bred in Wyke Regis. I was christened at All Saints Church. I grew up on the Downclose estate, Dundee Road. I remained there, and I met and married my husband there in the late 20s. As a serving soldier, it meant we were posted to Germany and then Kent for a period of 5 years. We left the army, unfortunately, to care for my dad, who had Alzheimer's, and I became his carer for a bit. When the opportunity arose, we returned to the area to bring up our children. We couldn't afford Wyke at the time, so we lived on Portland whilst the children were young, giving us the opportunity to save up for a house in Wyke, where we live now. Before gaining my degree and starting my business, I worked as a special educational needs assistant, a museum curator, education officer, and a youth worker. I'm a mum, a nan, a substitute art lecturer, businesswoman, and keeper of ancient patty old rescue chickens. I love growing food and enjoy encouraging others to do the same. I also get involved with community groups. I'm a member of the patient participation group at Wyke Health Centre. I've created a beach cleaning group and set up the Facebook page together for Rodwell and Wyke. I thrive on being busy, and yeah, I am the more I seem to get done. I'm a bit of a dynamo. Well, local politics is in my blood. My mum was councillor Brenda Dench. I love her passion for Wyke. It's instilled in me from a young age. Honesty, integrity, and drive is why I believe there are genuine politicians who want to help others. And although I'm my own person, I'd like to follow in her footsteps. Bang, look at that, bang on 2 minutes.
You rehearsed that, didn't you, Becky?
Ooh, yes.
So,
no, I don't know what you're talking about.
Claudia, welcome. It's lovely to have you here with us. Let's all of us hear a little bit about you as to who you are and why you are standing for election in Wyke Regis.
So my name is Claudia Webb. I've lived in Weymouth for most of my life on and off. I've lived in London for some parts of it, but my heart was always drawn back to Weymouth. You know, I'm truly passionate about living here, and I think that wherever you live, you have to try and make a positive difference in some way, and that there's always an opportunity outside of your day job to do that. You know, however busy you are. And they always say, don't they, like, ask a busy person if you want something doing. So I've been lucky enough to work for some amazing local companies. I worked for the Weymouth and Portland National Sailing Academy during the Olympics, which was a wonderful experience. I worked for Weymouth Pavilion when it was reopened, so we had to do a lot of the donkey work to set that up. I did a lot of hoovering there in my role as events manager. And then I also worked for Weymouth Bid for 3 years, which was a great privilege and something that I was very passionate about. It was a difficult job to do. It was representing approximately 600 businesses across the town, which basically meant it was like having 600 bosses, and was a tricky job to do. But it definitely taught me a lot about Weymouth and what people in Weymouth want and need. I was a councillor for 3 years before I joined Weymouth Bid, and unfortunately had to stand down as it would have been a conflict of interest. But I adored being a councillor. I loved helping people with their problems, however insignificant they may seem to some, or some people on the council. It's nice to know that you can make a real difference just by knowing the people who to contact, and also, you know, making the effort to get to know people so they feel comfortable contacting you, which isn't always through social media, unfortunately. I do a lot of community work, so Friends of the Rodwell Trail, Steps Youth Club, Weymouth Portland Heritage Group, and the Civic Society. And that, I think my time's up, unfortunately.
It is, yes. But thank you, Claudia. That was very kind of you. Now, you're being pitched straight back into this to speak again. So this is the question we would like to ask you is, please tell us your views on the proposed refuse from waste incinerator at Portland Port. So that's to you, Claudia. I can guess you're a green candidate.
Yeah. Although I don't think you necessarily have to be a green candidate to be against these plans. And certainly when I attended the demo last year, there were a lot of non-greens there, which was wonderful to see. So the proposals are continuing at the moment, but the planning department are working towards a decision at Dorset Council, I believe, on the 4th of October. So their plan is for waste to travel back along the road to Portland, which will increase the very largest lorries using the Portland Road by approximately 50%, which would not be a positive thing at all. And when the wind blows towards the land, the pollution won't only go towards Portland, it will also go towards Wyke Regis, which would be terrible, especially since, you know, we're really trying to promote the town, promote our tourist offer, and Portland Port are working so hard on their cruise ship offering as well. So to ruin all the environment like that would be a sad thing. So obviously these plants depend on long-term contracts for residual waste, which obviously doesn't encourage people to reuse and recycle as we should be doing. So and it's not green energy. Most of the energy that the residual waste uses comes from plastics and oils. So it's just not a great idea all round, in my opinion.
Thank you very much indeed, Claudia. You've answered that very succinctly and very well. Becky, let's hear from you as to how do you want me to give you the question again? Please tell us your views on the proposed refuse from waste incinerator at Portland Port. You're muted, Becky.
How embarrassing. No, I totally agree with Claudia on this. I'm against the incinerator. I was at the beginning open-minded because I wanted to hear both sides of the stories before just jumping in, because I am an environmentalist, so I didn't need to hear two sides of the stories to make a decision. So I went to both the sessions explaining the fors and the against, and I couldn't see any reason why it would do any good whatsoever. I mean, apart from the traffic increasing on Portland Road, which is crazy. You've got the environmental damage, you've got the environmental damage to the marine life. You know, I lived on Portland, so I can see it from both sides. The height of the chimney and how they can say that the pollution is not going to cross the island, I don't understand. It's going to be a hideous blot on the landscape, and it's just no, as far as I'm concerned.
Right, okay. Thank you both very much. So that's a no then, I think.
That's a no. Yeah.
Let's go now to Becky again. What do you see are the advantages of living in the ward that you represent?
I think to be a good councillor, it's vital that you are anchored in the community, because you care about that level on a very personal level. I have an established relationship with the people in Wyke. I've grown up with them, and their friends, families. My children use the same schools as they do. I use the same doctor's surgeries. I live just off the Portland Road, so I'm affected by the state of the traffic. I walk the beaches every day and worry about the pollution that I see there. You know, and I know the patch. I know the patch inside out. If you name a street in Wyke, I can more or less probably name somebody who lives in that street and tell you a little bit about them. So I think recognising residents, who they are and their needs, and respecting the problems as they see it is vital. And if elected, I do want to be the councillor like my mum was. You know, we used to walk up the shop and you get stopped by about 10 people for a chat. I welcome that, and I'd look forward to being that kind of councillor that they can approach. And yeah, I mean, to me, to be a good local councillor, you have to represent the ward that you live in. because you share the same concerns as the people that are going to vote for you.
Right, that's lovely. And over to you, Claudia.
I do agree with Becky in many respects, and it would be more ideal if I lived in Wyke. I do live, very close in the next ward to Wyke Regis, and spend a lot of time in Wyke Regis. So, I would never represent a ward that was, excuse me, far away from where I actually lived. I don't think I could do that with as much integrity and passion. Excuse me. However, I think it can be useful to have an objective eye. Obviously, I don't live in Wyke, so I may not get as emotional as some people who live in Wyke about certain matters. But I can be fair, and I can listen to people, and I enjoy listening to people. And obviously spending a lot more time in Wyke as well, and making sure that I'm available to speak to all those people who need to be contacted. It's not the ideal to have candidates not living in the area, but unfortunately that's the way it goes sometimes, because it's always hard to stand for any election, and it's not easy to find people for any party, to be quite honest. But I'm willing to put the work in, as I've proved in my own ward before, and I would be just as passionate about Wyke as I was about Rodwell.
Wonderful. Okay. Question 4. As a Weymouth Town Council candidate, how do you think you can help improve the communication and cooperation with Dorset Council with initiatives that Dorset Council carry out in our town? It seems that Weymouth Town Council is often left out when things are happening in the town. And that question goes initially to Claudia.
Yeah, I think there's very much the feeling at the moment, and it was the feeling when I was on Weymouth Bid as well, that Weymouth is very much the poor relation in some ways when it comes to Dorset plans. And I think it takes the combined efforts of all the agencies, Weymouth Town Council, the BID, the Weymouth Area Development Trust, etc., to ensure that we get the consultations that we deserve. And if a decision is made, for example, Weymouth Town Council, along with other agencies, argued about the planned parking charges in Weymouth, and they were rescinded. So it's efforts like that we have to keep up, and make sure that we, through things like the neighbourhood plan that's happening at the moment, make sure that not only Weymouth is represented, but Wyke Regis. And that can only happen by councillors going out, getting opinions from the people in their ward, and then representing them, and also just keep on keeping on. They have to realise that we have a say, and that they need to take notice, and that the decisions can't be made behind closed doors by officers. It helps that we've got some Green Dorset councillors, obviously, because we work quite closely with them. But I think a lot of work does need to be done in terms of communication, and just reminding them really that we're here and we care and we have a voice.
And for you, Becky, same question. Do you want me to read it again?
No, that's okay, Ali.
Okay.
Yeah, it's Claudia just, I'm just going to echo the same as what Claudia just said, really. I agree with her. I think it's as part of being a town councillor, and I've not been one before, but I've got a pretty good idea of what they do. You've always got to be asking why, when, who, how, and that's what we need to do with Dorset Council. We need to hold them, Dorset Council, sorry, we need to hold them accountable for what they do, and to make sure that we are, represented. A good way, moving forward, like the Weymouth Neighbourhood Plan, Claudia said, is a good way of gathering people's opinions and making sure through early engagement it goes through and that we hear everything they say and make sure it gets put forward. But you've got to have somebody who's feisty with a strong voice to make sure that this is done, and nag people, get on the nerves if necessary. But no, I think I agree with Claudia.
So question 5. What will you do to help Wyke Regis get public toilets in the park by the smugglers? Many users of the park need these facilities, as do members of the public. And I put that question first to Becky.
Yeah, this needs to be addressed. I had an email from somebody. I get a lot of emails from people who already think I'm a councillor. So you know, I have to put them in touch with people who are. But a lady did contact me who was in a wheelchair, and they were waiting. I think it was on Facebook as well, actually. But they were waiting at a bus stop, and the nearest toilet for her was to travel all the way into town before she could, you know, nip to the loo. I mean, apart from the fact that locals need it, if you get caught short in Wyke, I've had to bang on friends and family's doors to say, can I nip in and use your loo? So we do definitely need a toilet. I mean, the toilets were there. I think that they were sort of removed because of antisocial behaviour. So we need to address this issue as per usual. Get them pulled back in, but we need, you know, we need the funds, and we need to suggest that this is a real possibility, because Wyke needs loos. And as a woman of a certain age, I can tell you that's very important. But yeah, so we need to tackle the funding for that. We can do it. If you can put railings up, you can put a toilet in Wyke. And I said it. I said the railings. I did it. I went there.
Right. Let's have your views on toilets rather than railings, shall we? Claudia.
Promise, I've gone now.
Can we not have railings around the toilets?
Well, safety. I think somebody might fall in them. So you know.
Exactly. Yeah, of course, I agree with Becky. And as a sufferer of an inflammatory bowel disease, I would completely concur with needing more toilets in Wyke. Obviously, you need to get everyone behind you in order to take this further. So, you know, petitions, polls, things like that are good proof to be able to take to the powers that be to try and get things like that done. So I think that might be a good way of going about it. And, you know, it's such a shame that when ASB happens that things get taken away. For example, the bins on the Rodwell Trail that were damaged. And, you know, I think we need to try and encourage more pride, more community in our facilities like that, to kind of give people some sort of buy-in, so they don't feel they have to destroy things.
Thank you, Claudia. That was very helpful. The next question I've got for you, and this one's for you, Claudia, initially, is sometimes it's easy to forget that the town council functions outside of the Weymouth town centre and beach. What relevance is the town council to the people of Wyke, and what would you do to raise the profile of our community, its needs and identity on the council and in general?
Yeah, I think Wyke does get forgotten in comparison to some other areas, especially obviously the town centre area, which is probably only natural. But I think, you know, for example, there are a lot of good businesses in Wyke, and I don't think they get the recognition that they deserve. And from working on the bid, you know, I've learned a lot about marketing, especially marketing businesses, and that's something that I'd really like to take forward if I was successful in this candidacy. You know, and maybe get even something like a Wyke card, you know, like a Wyke gift card that you can spend in businesses and Wyke, things like that, just to put us on the map a bit more. And then, you know, perhaps we can develop our open spaces. We're lucky enough to have obviously the Rodwell Trail and the parks, etc. But you know, I think Wyke could have more green spaces, and I think by all working together as a community, which seems to be more on the map since the whole COVID thing, I think, you know, that's something that could quite easily be done. And maybe we could have our own Wyke wildlife corridor.
Wonderful. And now, Becky, your turn. What would you do?
Yeah, I mean, Wyke, we have got some good councillors that do speak loudly for Wyke and get good things done, and have got good things done in Wyke. I think, you know, there's always room for improvement. There's always room for another voice that wants to get something done. I mean, I think we need to create a stronger sense of community. We need to build on a community. We need to look after each other. You need a strong voice to take those wishes of the community forward. I think Hilborn, actually around the pump track, is a really good community area that we could build on. We could take things forward by, you know, even putting a little cafe there, making a trim trail, set up some events. You know, let's get Wyke heard, other people attracted to the area, you know, within the town as well, and send the message forward. So I did answer the question then, didn't I? Have I waffled? Yeah, so yeah, raise the profile of those. Yeah, I'm with it now. And yeah, and you know, just you're going to raise the identity to the council by being a good strong voice, and you know, investing your time and your effort to be in the presence that's just going to put forward other people's ideas, not just my own. You know, the residents have some cracking ideas as well that we can take forward.
Thank you. Now, question 7. Weymouth Town Council has looked at commercial activities in order to generate income and has kept the precept to 0% rise for 2 years. Do you believe the decision to operate beach cafes is a good idea, and do you have any other ideas to generate income? That question is going to go to Becky first.
Yes, I mean, it is a good idea to use the facilities to make money on the seafront. I mean, I wasn't 100% sure on taking it away from the small business owner that already owned it. I think there's other things we could have done. There's other assets that we could use in the town. I mean, there's plenty of spaces within the town centre that are just standing derelict, that are just owned by out of town investors, and that's why we've got so many closed shops and pop-up things as well like that. You know, there's so many ways we can do this. There's so it's not as hard as people think it is. But sorry, I've got a teenager in the other room waving at me, which is really unprofessional, but it's slightly off-putting. It not go away. Right. I mean, you could run the cafe. You could use it to give people work experience and that kind of thing as well. You know, the students catering to. Also, there's just a massive scope for what we could do. But yeah.
Thank you.
That was a bit waffly. I apologise for that.
That's right. It's hard to think on your feet. I know about these things. Now, Claudia, what do you think on this one? So that, first of all, it might have been easier if I'd broken down the question for you both. So the decision, first of all, by Weymouth Town Council to limit activities to 0% rise for 2 years. So first thing, and then there's the second part of this question around beach cafes. Did you want to sort of, and what about the whole aspect of creating income generally? So would that be easy if you took the question in 3 bits? Because I appreciate it's quite a long question, and there's actually 3 questions in there. I'll come back to you, Becky, if that's all right, because I think it was too much of a question just to answer all in one shot. Okay.
Okay, I'll give it a go. But
Claudia, let's go to you first, because you've obviously had a bit more time to think about it.
Yeah. So the beach cafe, I think it's a really good idea that councils are becoming more business-like and more commercial. You know, I think in the past, councils, not just our council, have been accused of making unbusinesslike decisions and not treating things in a commercial fashion. So I think it's great that we're really focusing on that and then putting the money back into services that we need. I think perhaps the negotiations weren't handled quite as sensitively as they could be, and I think a lot of people in the town aren't really aware of how it exactly went down, and that's why things got emotional. So I think perhaps the communications could have been better, but that the idea in its entirety was good. So I think that is something that could be focused on. But I think the most important thing is to for Weymouth Town Council, along with other agencies if necessary, is to get more grants into the town. For example, the Weymouth Gateway project at the station that we recently got funding for. You know, working on getting these grants can be a difficult process if you're not experienced in bid writing, and I think we need to ensure that we've got the right people to do that. And I think that Weymouth Town Council recently has been successful in getting quite a lot of grants, which is great news, and that's something that we need to focus on, especially, you know, with Historic England and things like that, to make visible improvements to the town. You know, they've come up with different ways like selling plants and things like that in our parks and open spaces. So any ideas like that put the money back into the services and stops the precept from rising is a great idea. Did I miss out any bits?
No, I think you've really done a good job. You've answered that very comprehensively. And I take it you're happy to because I think the question was a long one. It didn't really give a chance for Becky to probably answer certainly the second part of it. So first of all, Becky, it'd be really helpful to have a little bit of comment on what you felt about this whole 0% rise for 2 years, but then really an opportunity to respond about, you know, other ideas that you would see to generate income. Is that all right?
Yeah, I think when it comes to we've kept the preset at 0% rise, that's good, because in a way it's actually a reduction because it hasn't gone up with the rise of inflation. I think we need to look at what the DC has done when it comes to that. When it comes to generating income, I mean, there's events like the Ironman, which seemed to cause a lot of fuss, and people only went for the half. When my husband does Ironman, and we go to Tenby, we went every year, and the money it brings into that town is astronomical. And I've spoken to councillors there, and they said the town would have gone under without it. Shops are packed, B&Bs, you can't, if you tried to get into the Ironman next year, you're not going to get a B&B, and it's for a whole week. All the restaurants, people do that down the road. The whole town comes alive and they celebrate it. It's amazing. And why we didn't have full Ironman and take advantage of something like that is a bit beyond me. I mean, I know you've got to listen to concerns, people that are worried that lose money. The money they make is astronomical. So, I mean, there's things like that we need to perhaps really look at and re-invite, have these companies come to us again and say, yeah, actually, we might be interested in that because it makes a lot of sense. So, you know, let's bring some sporting activities, there's one. But of course, there's pride and things like that as well that would bring a lot of money into the town. And we did do it on a smaller scale, but let's make it better. Let's turn it into a Brighton Pride. It brings a lot of revenue.
Brilliant. Okay. Thank you. Sorry to stick with that one, but I thought it was an important question. Okay, so now we're going much more local with the question. With the pump track installed in Hilborn Road Park, what other improvements to the parks and green spaces of Wyke do you want to see? Let's go to you, Claudia, on that one first, please.
I think the thing I'd really like to improve would be the usage of these parks and green spaces by, you know, the entire diverse selection of people that we have in Wyke and Weymouth, for that matter. You know, by doing things like we do at the Chapel Hay Play Park with, you know, we grow potatoes for the children to pick and apple pressing and things like that. You know, lots of activities that encourage children to come and learn about where their food comes from and how to grow it. You know, so it's educational and fun and gets more use. And then things like, I don't know if you've heard of them, those trim trails, which are, you know, basically made of wood. You could have them along the Rodwell Trail, for example. It's something that I'm working on at the moment. And it encourages people just to move a bit more and increase their mental and physical health and well-being. You know, I think we have some beautiful open spaces and not everyone is making use of them. So I think we have to find ways to encourage them to do so, which might be events and things like that. You know, they have quite a lot going on at Radipole Park, and, you know, they get a lot of footfall through there. So yeah, I'd like to do something similar.
And that one now to you, Becky.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, there's ideas for Hilborn that I come up with. You could have like a cafe, again, owned by the council, so the money could go to the council, a water area for children, more hedgerows, more trees, a community garden, somewhere where people can be encouraged to grow veg and learn about sustainability. But, you know, we've got Tumbledown Farm coming, and the wonderful things that are happening at Radipole. Let's have a bit of that down this way, please. I spoke to Emily Brown from Parks this week, who's been speaking to Mr. Cornish at All Saints School, and that, you know, he wants me to phone her next week to see how, you know, can we get engaged with the kids? Can we get them to respect the gardens, do more with the gardens, get them, you know, oh, my time. Okay, oh, can I still go? Oh.
Well done. No, thank you both very much for answering that one so well. Okay, now question 9. What skill set can you bring in addition to professionals, retired and current, on Weymouth Town Council, e.g. finance, community outreach background, etc.? And how would this benefit Weymouth Town Council? So that question is going to go to you, Becky, first.
Right. I mean, the skill sets I bring, apart from life experience, running my own business. I mean, I ran my own business since 2009, and I've had a profit every year in my first year, which I'm quite proud of. So I have the skills when it comes to communicating with people on a professional level. I think that's sort of the task, isn't it? When it comes to sort of finance, community outreach background, obviously the skills I can put in are going to benefit this, but you've got to remember that I'm a candidate. I've not been a town councillor before. So I need to learn a lot of these skills. But I mean, I think Weymouth Town Council are a pretty good team of decent people that are going to be happy to sort of pass on how to do things, how to learn, how to develop, because they want good things for the town as well. So I've got some learning to do. I'm looking forward to that, and I relish it, and it's only going to make me a better councillor.
Thank you, Claudia.
Yeah, definitely agreed. And I think joining any council is different. So joining Weymouth Town Council would be a learning curve for anyone, really. And figuring out how people do things, when they've been doing it for so long, is tricky. But I think in terms of the skills that I already have, working with the bid and running a care home now, obviously finance and budgeting is always very important, especially when it's other people's money that you're financing and budgeting for. We had a £1.5 million budget at the bid over 5 years, so it's really important that we spend it wisely and be able to prove to people the return on their investment, really. And the care homes are always tricky to run. There's always a lot of pressure, so I've really learned a lot about how to make the correct economies. Something that I'm very interested in is tourism and marketing of the town. And I would love to continue that work on Weymouth Town Council. I know that they're already looking into tourist information provision, perhaps digital screens, and I think there would be a way to monetize it as well, to bring money into the town by being able to book through the council's tourist information provision, and therefore making money for our services. Obviously, you might not be aware, but I'm just about to start my training for the police specials, and I've worked a lot with the police and other agencies before. So, crime and ASB, I don't think gets focused on as much as it should, especially in Wyke, and I'd really like to help work towards improving that.
Thank you very much indeed. Now, question 10. That's will be interesting. A subject close to my heart. Weymouth Town Council has declared a climate and ecological emergency. What does that mean to you, and how do you see Weymouth Town Council responding to this emergency? And so with that one, I'm going to go to Claudia first.
Obviously, as a Green candidate, this is quite close to my heart, and I think to me it means putting the environment at the forefront of every decision that's made. It has to be included as much as equality and diversity considerations when you're looking at policies, when you're looking at the neighbourhood plan and things like that. And getting as many grants as you can, which Weymouth Town Council have already started doing for green spaces and improving the green spaces. So I think it's just something that will hopefully in time become a natural part of every single process that the council has. So it's not even an extra consideration. And I know that the town council has been working on things like solar panels and electrical charging points for vehicles, and I think it's really important that this is going to stay high on the agenda, and also that we push those views towards Dorset Council as well.
Thank you. That's really helpful. And you, Becky?
I mean, I think it's brilliant that the town council has declared the climate emergency. We've got recognition there, so we can get things done. I mean, you don't have to be green for this to be close to your heart. It's just as close to my heart. I mean, I'm as green as anybody. I believe the Labour Party's very green policy. We've introduced the Climate Change Act. But the worries that the town's got is like the sea levels increasing. We've got to deal with that firstly. I mean, obviously, I think the Environment Agency stepped in. I think we've got to find, DC's got to find 7 million to try and sort the harbour out in that respect. But yeah, we can use electric vehicles, we can improve transport, we can make reduce bus fares, get more public transport going. Solar panels on all new builds in Weymouth. You need to go back to looking at considerate construction that was unfortunately sort of stripped away by the present government. We need to go back and look at how our houses are going to be built locally. More bike lanes, cycling, we've got a really good bike lane, but we can make it better. We can link it up to All Saints School to make it safer for children and that kind of thing. So yeah, I mean, everything, anybody that Claudia or the Greens, I'm going to echo, I'm going to be with them on this one.
Okay. And then moving on to question 11, and I want to say thank you for participating today. Yes, the question here is, thank you for participating today, and you have 2 minutes to sum up why the residents of Wyke Regis should vote for you. And can I put a coda on there? You don't have to answer it because it's not the question, but on many, many issues, you are in full agreement. Why vote for you? And I don't mean, so that would be something that I'm left going, well, they're pretty much on the same, same page for most things. So why vote for you? So that would be my final question to you. Thank you.
Okay. Well, right. Why should you vote for me? If you Google what makes a good town councillor, the first sentence you see is someone who is bright, engaged, and embodied and anchored in their community. Right? Well, I can assure you that I'm all of these things, but I'm also honest, approachable, hardworking, and passionate. Like I said, I want to be that town councillor that you can chat to outside the chippy about something that you're worried about. Like I said, it used to take me and Mum ages to get anywhere because she was always stopped. I love that. I want to be part of that community. I want to, these are my friends, my family. I'm not here to be a town councillor for the sake of being a town councillor. This is not about ego. This is about our home and being your voice to represent it. Your problems are my problems. My kids go to your kids' school. I also worry about paying increased council tax. I want to protect our local services. I want to get a doctor's appointment when I need one. And I also want to look after our beautiful environment. I was born and bred in Wyke. I won't find anybody more passionate than me to look after the people that live here. I was brought up from a very young age to support this community, and with really good ethics, because I had a really good, strong, loving, caring mum who did good things for this area, and most people vouch that. So if you want good things for a lovely home and the amazing people live in it, please lend me your vote and give me the opportunity to learn and prove myself worthy of you.
Thank you, Becky. And Claudia.
So, I mean, honesty and integrity are really, really important to me. And if I didn't think that I could do a good job in Wyke, despite not living there, then I would never have put my name forward for it, because I don't think that would have been a thing to do if you claim to have integrity. So, I can quite happily assure the residents of Wyke that they'll never notice that I don't actually live in Wyke, because I'll put just as much effort into that as I do into everything else I've done. I have a good track record in terms of my behaviour, in terms of my work ethic. I do work really hard at everything I put my mind to, and I'm not interested in party politics or playing any kind of game on the council. I just like to get things done. Don't spend ages talking about it, just get things done. And I think it's just really important that people focus on listening to what people want rather than telling them. And you're always guaranteed to get people's backs up if you think you know what they want. So my promise would be to always listen to people, however they want to contact me. If I have to go there in person, I'll always be available through social media, email, telephone. And I proved when I was a councillor before that I will always reply to people. I'm reliable, and every single time I will do what I say I'm going to do. I've got experience in many Weymouth-based things, not Wyke specific necessarily, but anything that makes Weymouth the better place to be and to visit, is something that I'm in support of and work hard towards. So with the Friends of the Rodwell Trail, which is something I've been part of for 10 years, I've worked really hard to do the litter picks, etc. And, that does affect Wyke as well. And I'd really also like to support the elderly in Wyke, who often don't get represented because they're not using things like social media, to take the time to talk to them, find out what they want and get it done. Thank you.
Wonderful. Okay, well, that's time up on those questions. I want to thank both of you very much for coming this afternoon. I want to thank Luke Wakelin and Gary Hepburn, who's been behind the scenes doing all the technical stuff, helping these hustings to work well. Don't forget to get out and vote. And as I always say to myself, I don't say it to anyone else, but I do say it to myself, so I can say it here, is that if you're not happy and you didn't vote, then actually I've only got myself to blame for that. So do turn out and vote. And I do wish you both all the best, as well as the very, very best for our community at what is a very critical time in terms of the environment and in terms of the well-being of our community. So I wish you well, and thank you both very, very much for coming.
Thank you.
And for those who submitted questions as well. God bless you all, and thank
Bye.
you. Bye-bye.
Bye, bye, Claudia. Bye,
Bye.
bye.
Bye, Becky. Bye, Claudia.